Hello, we're here today on Country Pocket on WUSB. We have Claire Vine with us. The new album is We Carve Our Path, and we very much heard the title track of sorts. It's called Eyes Wide Open. Um, major theme of this record. We keep heading towards disaster with our eyes wide open. We keep carving our path. Do you think people know any better?
Um, I think that uh some people do. I think there's people with a lot of money and influence and power who really do know better, and they do know the path that we're being led down. I think some people are being misinformed by, the news and the media, and are maybe um maybe aren't sure, and yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but yeah, I guess I definitely think that a lot of people do know better. A lot of people do know what's going on by now. But there's some people, I suppose, that care more about money than the collective good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I know better. There are certain things I do to try to minimize my impact on the world. But if I'm being honest, sometimes I'll have those processed foods. I love having
Mm.
the fan on at night for the noise and the breeze. I'll run it the whole night, help me sleep. So even people who do know better, what's the gap between understanding that something's wrong and being able to take some sort of action?
Well, that is the big question. I've actually been studying a master's in sustainability and behavior change, which is that's kind of the question. And if we knew the answer, that would be brilliant. And we'd know how to sort things out. But there's so many factors. I know a lot about what I should be doing better, but I'm not by any means a perfect person. I don't necessarily do all of the behaviors that I think I should be doing if I really, oh, I don't know how to say it. There's definitely more I could be doing, but it's also quite hard, I think, to motivate yourself as an individual if, like, we're always comparing ourselves to other people, and there's so many people out there doing just like having far more negative impacts than me. It's quite hard to try and make myself be completely perfect when I'm like, oh, I'm trying really hard, I am doing my best. I think maybe too much blame falls to the individual person, and I think the change does need to be led by the bigger organizations that are having the bigger impacts, because I think as long as like huge conglomerates are having huge negative impacts, it's quite hard for me to feel like I don't know, I should like getting the train is gonna make a huge difference, or I don't know. Yes, quite is. I think we shouldn't be taking on too much blame as individuals, whilst also, like, try and do your best. But it's there is so much one person can do.
Okay, I find that to be absolutely fascinating. First of all, you're an actual expert. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm not an expert. You're doing graduate school on this. You are an expert.
I'm definitely not an expert, no, but I've studied it more. I kind of ended up doing that course slightly by accident. I'm studying at a place called the Centre for Alternative Technologies in Mid Wales, and I was going to do a course about food sustainability, and then I got there and discovered like the topic of behavior change, and realized that's kind of, to me, feels like that really is the crux of all of this. Is like, how do we we know what we need to be doing. We have a lot of science to back up what we should be doing globally, but the change still isn't really happening. And what is the sticking point? What's stopping us from moving forwards? And yeah, my kind of feeling is that it's the broader systems and structures that we're having to like work within, as yeah, the way that our sort of countries are run and the way that businesses are run. And it's quite hard to change anything in a capitalistic system, really.
And
um
while we have the reach that we have versus the reach that sort of these other entities around us have, the comparison between the power of, say, you know, a petrol company, gas
yeah,
company versus one person who switches to an electric car.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you've got, Elon Musk is about to become the first trillionaire or something, and when you've got that, it's very hard to feel like, yeah, my one little being can make a huge difference when you've got sort of people like out there that exist and have just such vast amounts of power and potential to create huge amounts of change if, the resources that certain people have were shared around a bit more. um Things could be quite different. Yeah, it's very, and also as an individual, like I think a lot of us are just like quite busy just working, trying to earn a normal living. It's quite hard also finding the time and the energy alongside that to be like fighting for change and to be able to afford to like my thing at the moment is like I'm sort of battling between wanting to buy like nice local organic food but also not really having very much money and feeling like I'm getting most of my shopping in Lidl because that's just what I can actually afford.
Yeah, I that's a fair explanation. Switching up to a different issue you raised on the album,
Mm.
the plight of migrants. So we're both in Wales right now,
Hmm.
part of the UK, and the song Lost at Sea deals with the UK attitude towards migrants, which is not really ideal to say the least. And only reason I really can't rip into it is because I come from the United States of America, where the attitude towards migrants is somehow worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure my listeners, if you're hearing this on air on WUSB in America, you know the situation in America. So why don't you, Claire, tell us a little bit about the situation in the UK?
To be completely honest, at this exact moment in time, I've sort of, uh, I'm not entirely sure of what the situation is at this moment in time, but just like broadly, it, well, yeah, broadly, we're not that welcoming. We It's hard to know where to start. At this moment in time, there's a rising shift towards sort of like the right within the country, and I would say a rise in anti-migration like rhetoric. There's a party, Reform UK, who are quite far to the right and politically, and they've gained a lot of popularity lately, and a lot of their chat is about um yeah, anti-immigration, and there's been a lot of asylum seekers, people seeking refuge, trying to cross the English Channel from sort of like France to England, in little dinghies and small boats, and there's a lot of talk about the people on the small boats being the problem, and there's a lot of like blame being pinned on them essentially for just like people in this country having economic hardship at the moment and struggling. And it's this kind of very strange narrative that if you actually dug down into it doesn't make any sense really. But yeah, there's certain people, politicians, newspapers spinning a sort of story about the fact that they're taking lots of money and resources from people and things like that. Um, when that is obviously not the case. They're given a very, very small amount of money to try and survive on. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and in both our countries, sort of the low wages they receive wind up subsidizing the locals in that, you know, it's cheaper to go out for to a restaurant, it's cheaper to get that food in the supermarket, you know, have your house cleaned, all types of stuff like that. Um, so how much overlap is there between sort of people not doing anything about climate action and people not doing anything to stand up against this narrative?
I think they're very linked things. Personally, I think it's sort of all, social and environmental justice to me are very, they're part of the same, yeah, they're part of the same picture. Um, for different reasons, but partially like the effects of climate change are really going to affect people in like the global south, sort of developing countries. And I think God, it's a big it's a big topic, but like I think in some ways people find it hard to care about, like I feel like I care about the effects of climate change because I care about the fact that it's just going to impact a lot of people's lives, and it's mostly initially going to impact people who weren't really the people that caused the problem in the first place. And I care about that, but I think some people do struggle to care about the fact that it's more likely to impact people that are like not white, maybe people in like live around the equator and and in sort of like warmer climates. And I don't think I'm sort of saying this very well, but
I
yeah, I think the two things are very linked. Yeah.
I hear you. So in your song Lost at Sea, you wind up calling out Boris Johnson, Priti Patel. I'm guessing the song was written a little while ago because
Yeah.
we have Labour, the quote unquote left party in the UK is in charge, and there's not necessarily a huge change in attitude. Nigel Farage and Reform from the right are calling for worse. So it's clearly sort of gone beyond the Tories, and now we're at this point where a refugee, asylum seeker, committed a crime in Belfast. I don't think anyone's saying the crime of hacking at someone's head with a knife is appropriate or that that individual doesn't deserve some pretty harsh consequences.
Mm,
But some people have turned this into more than a crime committed by an individual. And, there's rioting, burning of houses, buses, attacks on minority communities. You know, what as someone from this country, I'm imagining looking at Belfast feels a bit like when I looked at January 6th, attack on the Capitol in the United States.
mm. Well, I would uh, say that Belfast is in a different country anyway. I think a lot of people up there would consider Ireland to be a very different country, but with its own, and particularly Belfast has got like a really, really difficult and complex history, which is in the very, very recent history of a lot of, well, yeah. Uh, so what am I trying to say? I but yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible to watch, and it's quite scary, and it does feel a bit like a culmination of, what's been bubbling up over the last couple of years. There's been a sort of rise in mobilization of people with right wing political beliefs and ideologies seeming to sort of like come together and have lots of sort of rallies. And there was a period a couple of years ago, at least in England, where people were sort of like particularly targeting, like, I know in Bristol where I was at the time, they were targeting like asylum support services, like illegal uh, legal services for asylum seekers and various things like that. And they were trying to sort of like smash in the windows of basically just like any organization or various organizations helping asylum seekers and things like that. And this, it feels like a kind of, yeah, rise in the past couple of years of this kind of violent attitude towards asylum seekers and migrants. And yeah, it's really concerning and quite scary. And I feel like I don't quite know how to approach it, because it's it feels like it's happened quite quickly. It's obviously not come out of nowhere, but it feels like there's been quite a sharp change in the last couple of years. Um, yeah, and that is quite scary. And I also feel like in this case, I don't really know anything about the person. I can't remember his name. The person that did the stabbing in Belfast, but and obviously I don't agree with what he did at all, but also I'm wondering about, the circumstances that got him to that place, and whether his, like, what his mental health is like, that's got him to that point. And thinking, maybe if we were like, rather than being angry and violent towards people, like, surely that's only going to make people more angry and struggle with their mental health, and it's like breeding more of this type of violence, rather than, if we're more open and welcoming to meet people when they kind of get here and they're in need and they're struggling, maybe they would settle easier, and something like this might not have happened. I don't know. I don't actually really know anything about the particulars, but that was kind of my feeling, was like, and it's all just been blown out of proportion, because it seems to be they're just sort of indiscriminately attacking families who are not white, that have absolutely nothing to do with this anyway. And it completely baffles me. I don't, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean the targets are certainly unrelated to the
Mm,
perpetrator. But at the same time, I think the targets do tell you a little bit about what the attitude is of the rioters, who they think deserve to be targeted, essentially. But
mm,
yeah, it that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of I don't know what to do. Um, you know, there's not. I think in both our countries, either there's no real leadership
mm,
in terms of saying we cannot hold an entire race responsible for the actions of one misguided person. We cannot, like you alluded to, we cannot uh, react violently to the actions of someone who clearly has some problems if we're not putting
Mm.
together systems strong enough to help the people with the problems in the first place. Um, like there isn't that leadership, or if there are leaders like that, they're certainly not being covered by the media. So, uh, what do you feel about, I guess, how you wish someone might speak out? What would you want to hear, and who are the types of people you'd want to hear it from?
Just what do you mean as a leader?
Yeah, someone, what would you want to hear from someone stepping in and trying to calm this situation?
Oof. Um, I don't know, and I guess I feel like it's just it is so much more complex than that, isn't it? Like it needs to come from more than one person or a few people. I agree that yeah, maybe we do need some better leadership, just some like good role models. But I don't know, it's like a whole systemic thing. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're struggling in the left of politics with like a cohesive kind of narrative. I think that's something where the right, so you know, you've got your Nigel Farage or whatever with Reform UK, and he's a really good storyteller. He's really like he's got this somehow this kind of like charismatic kind of energy where he can galvanize people because he's just convincing, even if he's chatting nonsense. And I feel like, yeah, I guess we're kind of lacking
All right.
someone with some charisma. I like Zach Polanski from the Green Party. He seems cool, and yeah, but I think we need more people like that, I suppose, and we need people from the left to be kind of like yeah, working together rather than just kind of like splitting hairs over exactly how to do things because we're it's so sort of divided. But we also need I feel very sad about the Labour Party now because it's just not Labour, really. It's not really Labour. The Labour Party we have right now, I don't think is an authentic representation of what the Labour Party is supposed to be. I miss the Jeremy Corbyn era. I actually thought that he was I feel like yeah, like genuine. I feel like there's not enough like genuine authenticity in the leadership that we have. There's not many people that actually believe what they say. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a leader that who I just believed. It just shouldn't be that much to ask, really.
Yeah, theoretically, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Ah, all right. Let's hear Lost at Sea, and we'll be right back.